with J.J. McCarthy, you've got a young man that a lot of people expect to do a whole lot of big things this year. Played his first time full-time starting last year, won that job. And now people expect even more from him. He expects more from himself. My question, just to kick this thing off, we'll start with an easy one, Tom Crawford. Will J.J. McCarthy be making a trip to New York this December because he is headed for the Heisman finalist announcement?
Well, I'm a Captain Obvious, and actually, I started chirping this little thing, John, if you recall, the week after the Fiesta Bowl. I said, it's something told me that in my mind, and once again, the silhouette of him looking at the trophy presentation of the Fiesta Bowl champion to the opposition, this being TCU, unlike last year, and or like last year, it was with Georgia. This is a ultra competitive young man. And I don't know. He's got the something going on with him. I've always liked this kid. We go back to the quarterback argument a year ago. You knew what I felt about J.J. McCarthy and the fact he put on some more weight and what he's done in the weight room. I think the Holman, he's just going to be more seasoned. The fact he's so likable on this team. Everything on this team right now. I know it's easy. In mid-April, it's we're all protected from it, no accountability when you make declarations, right? But this, I'll say it again. I've never ever close to been this excited about the aspiration of Michigan football in the following season, fall chances of a natty. I think it's very good chance they're going to be in the national championship game. I think they're going to win the national championship game, and he's going to be in New York to answer your question, to win the Heisman Trophy. He's going to be there. Let's just say this. And what is there? Caleb Williams, and there's J.J. McCarthy, the top quarterbacks coming up. All these other teams have quarterbacks. I saw Kyle McCord on that Ohio State spring game. He didn't exactly scare me. This is the dude right there, number 9.
Okay, there you go. And just to remind folks and remind you, Tom Crawford, that there is accountability on the Wolverine Live. I will reiterate the fact that I owe Tom Crawford a Pizza Bob milkshake for what J.J. McCarthy accomplished last year, and we're going to get that done. So anyway,
we are going to get that done. I might order 2 of them on interest alone there. JD.
Oh yeah, okay. I'm good for it. I'm good for it. But I'm not going to say that J.J. McCarthy's not going to be in New York. Because I think he has an excellent chance to be. But let me just do the devil's advocate argument that's saying, okay, this is what might keep him from it. My question is, will Michigan throw the football enough for J.J. McCarthy to compile the kind of numbers during the regular season to be that guy, one of those 5 guys that go to New York? I mean, you're looking at a team, remember, that has brought back the heart of its offensive line, is going to be very good up front again, has basically 2 starting tailbacks, and Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards are going to pile up massive rushing numbers again. I mean, certainly one of those 2 guys in the backfield will have their own have their own claim to being one of those finalists. So could that impact, Tom Crawford, the chances for J.J. McCarthy to be there, to be the spotlighted guy?
Yeah, well, keep in mind, and we all know this, a Heisman Trophy is somewhat of a quarterback's award versus a running back award.
No doubt.
It's been that way, and then you got Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards kind of canceling each other out. I mean, not that they're tight. They're not competing against one another for some silly individual award, which I'm not big into individual awards. Here I'm proclaiming that he's going to be there, but I want Michigan to win a national title. I've never ever been a huge Heisman Trophy fan follower, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of my friends are voters, and I kind of just politely listen to their dialogue about it. I don't care. Would it be not? I loved it when Charles Woodson won it, and I'd be loving it with JJ. But other than that, it's kind of a thing on Saturday night. The week after the Big Ten championship on a Saturday night, about 10-9, you see who wins the Heisman Trophy. Sometimes I'm watching, sometimes not. But I think I think the aerial game is to answer your question, I think it's gonna improve vastly. I think with Sharon Moore steering the ship as the OC by himself, I think that's gonna be that's a good thing in my regard. And I know we're gonna talk about Kirk Campbell here, but I think the dynamics that he is gonna bring as a quarterbacks coach is gonna be great for JJ. I just like everything. I just like everything. Maybe I'm Mr. Over super positive here, but I just like the way things are lining up.
Okay, two things about what you just said. I agree on the 97 Heisman Trophy, my favorite Heisman Trophy of all time, for
Yes.
two reasons. Not only was it the first defensive player in Charles Woodson to win that, but it still has Tennessee fans apoplectic to
Oh yeah.
this very day
Great,
because
great word.
Peyton Manning got shut out. And so there's no question about it. And the second thing is, if we're sitting here talking in April about whether or not the quarterback makes New York for the Heisman Trophy, that's pretty good. That's better than, say, what we were talking about in the summer of say 2021 after that 2020 season.
Oh
It's
yeah.
there's no question about it. Michigan has come a long way from that devastating 2-4 COVID truncated seasons. How will JJ, in your mind, be different because of that TCU game, because of that loss? And I say this in part because I was going back through JJ's interview towards the end of spring ball, and he talked quite a bit about that TCU loss
Yeah.
and his role in it and how it affected him. And I got to thinking about that. Wrote my column in the Wolverine magazine, which is about to come out, about that. What do you think? How is that loss against TCU going to affect JJ this year?
Well, I think based on observations and hearing him talk in front of the media, although we heard him from the media after always wins. Last year, as far as I didn't go to the I did not attend the Fiesta Bowl, so I wasn't in that presser. And he got out of there pretty quick. I'd like to see him handle that. Hopefully, there's not another loss next year anyway, and they go unscathed when it won't be tested. But um, he's gonna learn. He's a learner from experience. I think he learned a lot his freshman year that rolled into a lot of precision as a second year kid. And I think this year he's going to be even more. And the thing about him, besides his resiliency, he's such a competitor. He's got a lot of Tom Brady in him. I really think that in terms of just willingness or yearning to win. And it bothered him. And I go back to watching the trophy presentation. That's just part of his therapy, and that's part of his solution of how he's going to manage this defeat and take that negative and flip it into a positive, leverage that negativity, that horrible thing he's watching the other team get the trophy, and use that as a motivational image, if you will, and use that probably every day in practice. And so I think it's going to be a plus. I think he's going to learn. I think the offense is going to open up so he can throw more downfield. And then the RPO, which I've talked about before in key games, when he has to keep and be a downhill runner, you want to keep him upright, but there's going to be those times when that decision is going to have to be made. And I think he's going to embrace that opportunity.
Yeah, interesting that you mentioned that. You talk about how he reacted with emotions during the press conference. Now, he talked about how he intends to react emotionally going forward in big games like that. Not only you mentioned, he didn't lose a game right up until TCU. Well, he also didn't have a chance in a game where Michigan was really scrambling the entire game to come back. Certainly they did to an extent against Ohio State, but to have that kind of situation where you have to hold your emotions in check, you have to have everything together, and you're running out of time. He mentioned the fact that one of his first throws goes for 6 points the other way, and thinking, I just gave the other team 6 points, and how you have to put that aside. And he's convinced that he will be better in a similar situation next year because of what he went through. And so I think, in both of those situations, football wise, the latter is the one that he is most concerned about, because he's going to, if Michigan gets to the level of competition again where it's in the playoffs, he could very well be in that situation again. So there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's like Hank Stram, the old coach of the Chiefs. The biggest word in football is the word forget. Especially if you're a quarterback or a guy in the secondary who gives up a touchdown. And JJ McCarthy get those pick sixes. I mean, think in the game, he had to just kind of regroup himself mentally, and he played pretty good in that second half. That's a sign of resiliency. Okay, he made
Hmm.
mistakes in both halves, but I mean, the pick sixes were deadly. Let's be
Yeah,
real. But I think
no
he's
doubt.
going to be a better player as he's communicated. He embraces. He doesn't ignore his misfortune. He seems to embrace it, and that's a sign of maturity. And as far he's building himself up mentally as much as physically.